Good evening. It is a real pleasure for me to welcome all of you here this evening and to thank you for joining us in this tribute to Justice Sonia Sotomayor of the Supreme Court of the United States. As you all know, each year the NYU Annual Survey of American Law dedicates its forthcoming issue to an individual who has made a significant contribution to the law. We've had the privilege of honoring distinguished jurists, including Justices Scalia and Breyer, Judge Posner of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, Judge Wald of the DC Circuit, as well as leading academics, including Anthony Amsterdam, Arthur Miller, the late Derek Bell, and Ronald Dworkin. And we are truly delighted that our students on the annual survey have chosen to dedicate the 73rd volume to Justice Sotomayor, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. This is Justice Sotomayor's second event here at the law school in a 2-hour span. I said in introducing her at the earlier one that she is one of those people who needs no introduction but gets one anyway. And so hers is a distinguished biography, of course, educated at Princeton and then at Yale Law School, where she served as an editor on the Yale Law Journal. Directly after graduating, she served as an assistant district attorney in the New York County DA's office for 5 years. And then in private practice, where she litigated international commercial matters, among others. In 1991, she was appointed by George H.W. Bush to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, where she spent 6 years as a federal trial judge. And then from 1998 to 2009, she served as a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. And then finally, in 2009, President Obama nominated her to be Associate Justice on the Supreme Court in May of that year, and she assumed the role in August, joining her colleagues for the 2009 term. I was very fortunate to get to know a nominee, Sotomayor, in those months. During my time in the White House, I played a small role in the team that worked with her in preparation for her Senate hearings. No one who has ever appeared before the Senate would look back on it with fond memories. It is, I suppose, by design, but certainly in effect, a trying time. It's also a time where I think one gets an opportunity to judge the true depth and quality of a person's character, and it was very moving for all of us who worked with Justice Sotomayor in those months to see that she was a person not only of immense intelligence, but an incredibly hard work ethic and deep, deep personal integrity. These are the kinds of things that show through in those crucible moments, and they're the kinds of things that have led her to be an outstanding member of our country's highest court. Now I'd like to turn the program over to this year's editor-in-chief of the annual survey, Austin Wilkins. Austin earned his BA in political science and international affairs from Florida State University. He worked as a legislative intern for the Florida Senate and as a judicial intern with Florida's 3rd District Court of Appeal before coming to law school here at NYU. He spent this past summer at Schulte Roth, and the Journal has had another spectacular year under his leadership, so I want to thank you, Austin, for all of your hard work in organizing this event. Austin.
Thank you, Dean Morrison, for that wonderful introduction. As he said, my name is Austin Wilkins, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the NYU Annual Survey of American Law. So we're here tonight to celebrate the dedication of our 73rd volume to the Honorable Justice Sonia Sotomayor, which we're very excited about. But before I get started, I want to take a few seconds to, first of all, thank my incredible staff for all of their hard work this year. It really takes everybody to run a journal like ours. I also want to thank our wonderful guest speakers for coming out here tonight. It couldn't happen without you, and you're what makes it special. And of course, I want to thank Dean Morrison and everyone at the school, especially Tracy Nwafor, for all their help in putting this event together and making it a success every year. So some of you are probably familiar with the NYU Annual Survey of American Law. Some of you may have been to these events in past years or even spoken at them before, as I know some of you have. But for many of you, this is your first exposure to our journal. So I just want to take a second to kind of explain the significance of these events that we do every year. The Annual Survey of American Law has, for many years, since 1942 actually, published a volume every year, sometimes of multiple issues, chronicling and helping to analyze the recent developments in American law. That very first volume was dedicated to then Chancellor of the New York University, Harry Woodburn Chase. And since that first dedication, we have dedicated each subsequent volume to a person, an individual who we believe has made a significant impact on American law in recent years. And tonight, we are welcoming Justice Sonia Sotomayor for this honor. You can see on the back of your programs tonight the list of all of our past dedicatees. And it's really an amazing club of very distinguished individuals. This tradition that we have of every year holding this event and dedicating our volume, our work to a person, I think signifies our journal's understanding that the law is more than just the written words on a page of a statute or in a judicial opinion or on the pages of a law review, but it's really also the people behind the law, the people who work to create it, to improve it, and to expound upon it every day. And so in events like these, we celebrate those titans of American jurisprudence for all of their hard work. But it's also important to remember that the law isn't just the law of these very distinguished individuals. It's also the law of the common American, the people who every day are affected and affect the law very subtly in their own way. And this is not a lesson lost on tonight's honored guest. She grew up just north of here, but in a very different world. At a recent gathering of the Bronx Defenders, she told them that instead of being called by her full designation of the Honorable Justice to the Supreme Court, she would rather be known as Sonia from the Bronx. And I think that's a big reason why we picked her. She really is a justice of the people who knows what it's like for everyday Americans out there, and she's working to make sure that they really have a law that works for them. Not too long ago, only 12 years ago, at the 60th anniversary of this event, a Second Circuit judge sat in one of these chairs over here and gave a lovely tribute to that night's dedicatee, a certain John Sexton. And tonight, we are overjoyed to welcome that judge back into our community, only this time as a justice of the United States Supreme Court, and this time as the one who is to be receiving those tributes. So next is going to be Dean Morrison to introduce our guests, but I just want to say welcome from the Journal, our staff, and everyone here to the Honorable Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, Sonia from the Bronx Sotomayor.
Now that is a title. So one of the great things about being dean is I get to hop up and down at events like this. So I'll come up and introduce each one of our speakers in turn. And first, it's a real pleasure to introduce, to welcome to the law school, a great friend of the school, Judge Robert Katzman, the Chief Judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. Judge Katzman is a longtime member of that court and has served as its chief since September the 1st, 2013. Before being appointed to the Second Circuit, he was the Walsh Professor of Government and Professor of Law and Public Policy at Georgetown University, and was also a fellow of the Governmental Studies program at the Brookings Institution and president of the Governance Institute. He was educated at Columbia College for his undergraduate studies, did a master's and PhD at Harvard, and went to law school and graduated from Yale Law School, where he was article and book review editor of the Yale Law Journal. Among the many hats that he wears, he currently chairs the U.S. Judicial Conference Committee on the Judicial Branch. He's a wonderful leader in his judicial role and in a number of extracurricular ones as well, including teaching here at the law school very successfully for a number of years. So we're very pleased to have with us this evening Judge Robert Katzman.
Thank you, Dean Morrison. Thank you, Austin. Good evening to everyone. It is a great privilege to be part of this tribute to the extraordinary and special Sonia Sotomayor, not only a brilliant jurist, but the people's justice, a wholly accessible and giving justice who inspires us to do better, who has given hope to people of all hues, including those who must struggle every day, people she has encouraged to dream and live their dreams, who feel now that their dreams can be realized because of her. Last week, Sonia and I were at a panel about statutory interpretation. The panel comprised of 4 judges, one of the judges having once been a legislator with a litigator as a moderator. We had a great discussion that morning that ranged from how legislation gets made and passed, the often misunderstood role of agencies in the work of legislation, the helpful critiques by some textualists on how legislative history gets used, the stances of the justices in some recent cases. I spoke first and talked a bit about my book on statutes. Sonia spoke next, managing in a few short minutes to present to the audience difficult concepts in wholly understandable form, and to connect with the audience in ways unmatched by anyone else I know. As she said that morning, she and I use similar methods and tools when approaching the often thorny task of discerning the meaning of a statute. In her remarks, the justice said something that I found particularly striking. She said that she always looks at the structure of a statute while trying to unpack it. Striking, because structure is an idea that has been an important principle in Justice Sotomayor's approach to judging and life. And in my brief time, I want to talk about how structure has been important to Justice Sotomayor in law and in life. Structure. In her masterful book, which I, like many others, predict will be a classic in American literature, the coming-of-age story of a brilliant young Latina who faces and triumphs over a series of adversities, the justice frequently uses and refers to structure. She writes that she was, and I quote, drawn to psychology and sociology, having always been interested in the patterns of individual behavior, as well as the structure of communities. She writes of her college professor who urged her to develop an argumentative structure in organizing her facts. Critiquing her mother's writing for her nursing degree, Sonia said, "There's no structure here, Mammy. It wanders." The way Bob Morgenthau, the boss, structured the office was a model of efficiency and integrity. Writing about her love for the law, she observed, and I quote, that the law gives structure to most of our relationships, allowing us to promote our interests at once in the most harmonious way. She continued, and I quote, that through the law, you could change the very structure of society and the ways communities functioned. She writes of the law as the structure for upholding society. With her analytical mind, deep concern for society, for fairness, and of course, fondness for Nancy Drew stories and Perry Mason, it is no surprise that the law appealed to her. What is structure and why does she like it so much as she writes about the law? To be a pure textualist for a moment, and only for a moment, and use a dictionary, structure pertains to the relationship or organization of the component parts of a work of art or literature, or a mode of building, construction, or organization, arrangement of parts, elements, or constituents,
or a complex system considered from the point of view of the whole rather than of any single part, or anything composed of parts arranged together in some way, an organization, something built or constructed as a building, bridge, or dam. But what does structure mean to Sonia Sotomayor? From a young woman's orderly, disciplined mind, the law, with its history, its language, the use of precedents, appeared and made sense to her. For a person who liked the big picture, who liked seeing the order and, yes, the structure of the system, of an intellectual discipline, of, yes, statutes, law, with its myriad and vibrant connection to the practical lives of human beings, spoke to her the way a song or piece of music can speak to us when we immediately recognize something that makes sense to us, and we feel it and know it in our bones. By looking at the big picture, the Constitution, the legislation, the problems to be addressed, she could start to see the priorities and principles guiding it. For someone who could live literally thanks to the structure of her daily insulin shots, which she started to administer to herself at not yet 8 years of age, the structure of law, along with its dynamic quality, speaking to her zest for life, had to make total sense. She loves the law, how it works, how it lives, how the writing and analysis of it are some of those components. Sonia, are you sure you weren't a Talmudic scholar in some earlier part of your life? As someone very proud to call Sonia a close friend, I can personally attest to her extraordinary prowess and excellence on the bench. Sure, I know that Judge Calabresi would certainly agree. Sonia is a judge's judge, a lawyer's lawyer. No one loves the law, its structure, its history, its language more than she does. Taking apart an argument, pulling apart the pieces, analyzing the logic, tracing the precedent, connecting a case to the Constitution, relating the issues and history to today's world would satisfy her intellectually and, I think, emotionally. She loves what she does. No one on the bench is more prepared than she is for oral arguments, and no one more eager than she to explore what is going on in a case, the history of it, the contingencies, the ramifications, and to make the right and fair decision. Unique among Supreme Court justices is her trial court experience. She has a deep appreciation of not just legal principles, but also to facts on how decisions affect the realities on the ground and the need to be sensitive to those realities. Her career as a prosecutor, commercial lawyer in private practice, as a district court and appellate court judge give her a deep and experienced perspective and wisdom. I love how Justice Sotomayor loves the world from which she came, and how joining the Supreme Court made her want to write better, wanted her to better understand her childhood. From her vivid descriptions of the public housing development in the Bronx where she grew up, the brick of the buildings, the window out of which she and her father gazed at the moon and imagined worlds far away, the neighbors and relatives whose apartments were as familiar to her as her own. Sonia describes the built and human world, this beloved world, with its characters, its part and pieces, its landscape and sounds and tastes, its woes and comedies, and to her, clarity and willingness to share her hopes and anxieties. Any reader can feel connected to her and to the world of the South Bronx. Yes, the structure of that world has been made available to us through her wonderful book. Although from reading My Beloved World, you get the sense that other people and others' dreams, problems, and joys are deeply important to her, those of us who have the privilege of being part of her world palpably feel the kind of person Sonia Sotomayor is. The structure she has created for the way she lives her life is a gift to all of us. She manages to pack more in a day into life than anyone I know. A person of indefatigable energy. A typical week might involve intense and full devotion to court work, hosting student groups and classes, staying close to family, old friends, clerks, indeed attending to the problems of friends and family with complete focus, perhaps convening a poker game, attending dance performances, traveling and immersing herself in the world in which she is in, attending community events in the former neighborhood in the Bronx. She is very much someone for whom others are important and who will inconvenience herself for the sake of someone else. The examples I could give are legion. I remember one when a friend of hers was dying right around Christmas and was out on Long Island. Sonia, in Washington and needing to attend also to her mother, found a way to visit and sit with that friend on Christmas Eve, if I remember correctly. This is not unusual for her. If you're part of her circle and her friends and her family, there is no I in you, but truly we. I feel pretty confident that I can speak with some authority about this extraordinary person who is a sister to me. After all, we were born within 14 months of each other in the same city. We went to the same law school and overlapped. We worked together on the same court for a decade. In the 10 years that we sat together, my clerks did a survey. We agreed 100% of the time. In 238 cases, there is not one difference between us, which is really pretty amazing. Sonia presided in those cases, so I mean, I was just following the leader. The sum in total I've talked about is but one window into Sonia Sotomayor's greatness. I use greatness in a very particular way. There are those who achieve great things in life, but they are not great people. They lack the concern for others, the kindness, the capacity to be generous with their time, energies, and commitment. Not so with Sonia Sotomayor, who is the total package, who in my book is in the pantheon of great human beings. What a joy it is, what a privilege it is to know her. Sonia, thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for everything you are. You are fantastic, and I love you.
Thank you, Judge. Now it's a great honor to introduce Judge Guido Calabresi, also of the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. Judge Calabresi is another towering figure in the law. He's served on the Second Circuit since 1994. Prior to that appointment, he was Dean and Sterling Professor of Law at Yale Law School, where he began teaching in 1959. He is a towering figure in many legal fields. I'll say that when I was a law student, reading Calabresi on torts was a classic exercise, and he's had similar influence on many other areas of the law as well. He counts among his former students Supreme Court Justices Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, and tonight's guest of honor, Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Please join me in welcoming Judge Calabresi.
It's a great, great joy to be back here, to be back for this event where I was the subject some years ago, to walk by the portraits of Ricky and John, two remarkable deans, and most of all, to be here to honor Sonia. To honor Sonia. I've heard many quite correct descriptions of what makes Sonia the wonderful judge and human being that she is. Great intelligence, empathy, grounding in facts, and in her own remarkable life experience, and as those who were at the civil justice humor and humanity. They're all true. But there is one quality that I have not heard mentioned, which makes all of the other attributes work. It is courage. And it is on that quality that I would like to focus my remarks today. I don't know much about physical courage. I don't really understand it. I've never been called to exercise it. I'm not sure that I would if I had to. It's another form of courage that I'm concerned with. It's moral courage. It's moral courage that I have in mind, and it is moral courage that characterizes Sonia. That quality, both rare and wonderful to behold, is what, for me, makes all the rest of Sonia so powerful. Let me give a few examples of Sonia's moral courage. I start long, long ago with a very young Hispanic girl from Puerto Rico and the New York projects. She arrives at the Yale Law School, a place that tries to be nice, but that scares any number of kids who have all sorts of safety nets underneath them. They react by giving back to their teachers what their teachers told them, almost word for word. They make no mistakes, they take no chances, and they sell themselves short out of a very understandable form of what, dare I call it, is cowardice. Perhaps it even happens in as nice a place as NYU. But not Sonia. I taught her torts, and I know. Where she got the guts, I can't say. But right from the start, she took chances, used her imagination, and disagreed when she did not agree. Courage. Later, as a district judge, when everyone said, be careful, be cautious, don't be controversial, and you will have a great future and a great career, SS, as we call her on our court, paid no heed. Read those early opinions and you'll see what I mean. And of course, it resulted in opposition that almost derailed her appointment to the Second Circuit. Go back and see what some senators were saying. But Sonia had refused to let cautious careerism keep her from doing what she believed justice and law required. And if it made appointment and confirmation impossible, too bad. Courage. On our court, it was the same again. Many a very good circuit judge gets mentioned in the press as a possible appointment to the Supreme Court. And all of a sudden, you see that very good judge start to waffle. A sad but understandable sight. Sonia was talked of for the court from the moment she came to us, and I dare anyone to find anything she did that might in any way have seemed to bend to that wind. But there is more. Sonia was and is devoted to her mentor and great role model for Hispanics and Puerto Ricans, the brilliant, powerful, and charismatic Jose Cabranes. Jose is, unlike me, a person of strong views. He probably expected that Sonia would, out of deference and perhaps juniority fear, go along with him. But there, too, Sonia was always herself, agreeing with her mentor when she did, and standing up to him, fiercely even, when she didn't. And this is what is more remarkable. She did this while constantly reaffirming her affection, gratitude, love, and deep debt to him. Courage. And on the Supreme Court, how easy it is for a junior justice to be silent, to go along with revered seniors out of fear of stepping out of line. Even very great ones have done so. My own judge, Hugo Black, told me of how, to his sorrow, he went along with Cardozo and voted to allow a clear double jeopardy execution in Palco versus Connecticut, to his everlasting dismay. I was new, and I did not dare to stand up to the great Cardozo, he said to me. I could mention many, many others among justices whom I greatly admire, but who have failed in this regard. But not Sonia. Here too, and from the very beginning, she knew what she believed law and justice required, and she said so, whether with others or alone. Has that made her seem less cozy to some of her Supreme Court colleagues? Perhaps, I don't know. Holding to one's belief is always costly, but to me it bespeaks a quality that is most rare in public life and in private life as well. It is a quality that made me think somehow of a poem by the great abolitionist poet James Russell Lowell. Once to every man and nation comes the moment to decide in the strife of truth with falsehood for the good or evil side, some great cause, some great decision, offering each the bloom or blight, and the choice goes by forever twixt that darkness and that light. Then to side with truth is noble when we share her wretched crust, ere her cause bring fame and profit, and 'tis prosperous to be just. Then it is the brave one chooses, while the coward stands aside, till the multitude makes virtue of the faith they had denied. Sonia has never stood aside. She has always spoken the faith that law and justice required. And it is that quality that makes all the others, brains, imagination, empathy, a background that qualifies one for a job, etc., meaningfully effective, because without courage, they don't do anything. It is a quality that shines on and commands respect when much else has passed away. It is a quality that makes Sonia as truly admirable as she surely is. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Calabrese. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Judge Deborah Batts of the Southern District of New York. Judge Batts earned an undergraduate degree from Radcliffe and graduated from Harvard Law School in 1972, was in private practice at Cravath, and was an assistant United States attorney in the Southern District of New York in the criminal division. She was sworn in as a district judge by Judge Pierce in 1994. Judge Deborah Batts, thank you.
I have been given the honor and privilege of giving a tribute to my dear and constant friend, former colleague, and big boss, the Honorable Sonia Sotomayor. Or, to put it another way, our mission tonight, and my colleagues up here and I come from a very deep bench of Sotomayor fans, is to try to do justice to the justice. I would call this truly a mission impossible. Now, when you heard me just say deep bench of fans, you may have wondered, how did I mean it? Bench, of course, is often a term used to describe judges, as in appointed to the bench. Deep bench, however, is sports terminology which means having a large number of very talented players. As not all players can play at the same time, other very talented players will be sitting on the bench waiting to go in. Bob, Guido, Dawn, and I are very lucky that we get to play on the starting Sotomayor team tonight, whose other loving members are legion. Being here, talking to you now in that capacity, is better than being elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Why all this sports talk? Because I want to talk briefly about a case that affected millions of baseball fans, that is historic and interesting, and was decided by then District Court Judge Sonia Sotomayor, and which prompted President Obama in June of 2009 to introduce her to the world as not only his Supreme Court nominee, but as, quote, the woman who saved baseball, close quote. I want to talk about Silverman versus the MLB Players Relations Committee. The petitioner, or plaintiff, was the regional director for Region 2 of the National Labor Relations Board. The respondent, or defendant, was the collective bargaining representative for the 28 major league clubs, or the owners. The NLRB issued a complaint on the basis of charges filed by the players that the owners had violated the National Labor Relations Act by unilaterally eliminating, before an impasse had been reached, salary arbitration for certain reserve players, competitive bargaining for certain free agents, and the anti-collusion provision of their collective bargaining agreement. The NLRB sought an injunction against the owners' unfair labor practices. In December of 1993, the basic agreement had expired, and negotiations began for a new agreement in March of 1994. Negotiations were ongoing, but on August 12, 1994, the players commenced a strike. The owners wanted a salary cap, elimination of the salary arbitration system, and a more restricted free agency system. The players objected to the salary cap, but were open to a tax system on high-paying clubs to deter extravagant wage offers. On March 29, 1995, the players offered to return to work if the court issued an injunction restoring the full terms of the expired basic agreement. If the court did not issue the injunction, opening day with replacement players was scheduled for April 2nd, 1995. Now notice the very short window between March 27th, 1995, when the NLRB petition for an injunction was filed, and opening day on April 2nd, 1995. However, Judge Sotomayor's opinion was rendered on March 31st, 1995. In enjoining the unilateral actions of the owners and restoring the terms of the expired basic agreement, then Judge Sotomayor said, the owners argue that the right to bid competitively or collectively must be a permissive type of bargaining, because if it were a mandatory topic, the owners would be forced to give up their statutory right to bargain collectively. Courts in addressing the antitrust area of law have easily recognized, however, that the essence of collective bargaining in professional sports is the establishment and maintenance of reserve and free agency systems in which owners agree to bid competitively for some players and collectively for others. The owner's argument has a superficial appeal in its attempt to hearken back to the unionizing cry of employees when they banded together to create this nation's union laws. What the owners have missed here, and the NLRB has not, is that the statutory right to join collective bargaining units belongs to employees, not employers. The NLRA gives only employees the right to bargain collectively through an elected representative. In other words, the term employer union for collective bargaining purposes is not meaningful. Or, in other words, play ball. You know, earlier I said that Justice Sotomayor's friends are legion, and that those of us up here are so fortunate to represent them. Of the four of us, I am the new kid on the block, since I only met Justice Sotomayor in 1991, shortly after Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan put both our names forward for district court judges. We went to dinner, talked all night, and have been fast friends ever since. As a friend, she is wonderful, intensely loyal, supportive, loving, considerate, funny, candid when it is not easy to be, and always there for you and with you. Now, many songs have been written about enduring friendship. Carole King's "You've Got a Friend" comes to mind. But because Justice Sotomayor's friends all know that she will always be there for them, another song comes to mind as well. Even though many of you are not old enough to have seen the first run of the TV show Golden Girls, there is a good chance you have seen the reruns on cable television. The show's theme song was written by Andrew Gold, and it is called "Thank You for Being a Friend." No, there is no need to lock the doors. I'm not going to sing it. I am going to quote the first stanza, however. "Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true, you're a pal and a confidant. I'm not ashamed to say, I hope it always will stay this way. My hat is off, won't you stand up and take a bow? Sonia, on behalf of all of us, thank you for being our friend."
Thank you, Judge Batts. Now, as to the honorary degrees, part of me wants to quote John Sexton, who's here, and say one should never let facts get in the way of the truth. But if it turns out that the facts are other than I've represented, I want you to know that by tomorrow morning, there will be 50 honorary degrees from NYU in your chambers, and we'll take care of it that way. Our last speaker this evening before hearing from the justice is Dawn Carty. She's the founder of the Carty and Edgar law firm. She received her BA from Fordham and her law degree from Pace, where she was a member of the Law Review. She began her legal career in 1979 as a staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society, where she was ultimately promoted as supervisor of trial attorneys. In 1987, she was appointed Assistant Attorney General in the New York State Department of Law, where she received the New York State Special Achievement Award for her trial expertise. And in 1992, she opened her own firm specializing in matrimonial and family law. She's a frequent commentator on a range of issues, and we're very glad to have her with us here this evening. Dawn Carty.
Before I talk about her, I just want you to say that when you get out there and practice law, you never know who your colleague is going to become. You never know who your adversary is. It is terribly important to be respectful of each other and to listen and not judge from where they stand. Because had we not done that, I would not be here today, and I would not have had the best friend in the world. So that's just a little aside. When I was invited to speak tonight, I was honored and touched to do so. So I asked if there was a theme, and I was told I should speak about Sonia's achievements. Well, I thought, achievements, wow. How many hours do we have this evening? And then I was told I should only speak about 8 to 10 minutes, and I was relieved because clearly I was not expected to speak about all of her achievements. So I began to think about what aspect of her achievements should I discuss. And I decided that most people know about her professional achievements, and some who have read her memoir know about her personal achievements. There is so much I could tell you about her. Don't worry, Sonia, I promise not to tell everything. I was struggling to organize my thoughts when I heard President Obama interviewed on 60 Minutes. And when he was asked, what was he looking forward to when he left the White House, one of his first answers was, living outside the bubble. And my first thought was of Sonia. One of her biggest fears when she was nominated and ultimately named to the Supreme Court was that she would be trapped somehow by the bubble. The bubble, as you know, is that world that famous, powerful people live in, whether they want to do so or not. It is the way people start to treat you differently because you are famous and powerful. It's what happens to your head the way when people start to treat you this way and when you live in the bubble. I suddenly realized that one of Sonia's greatest achievements has been that she has transcended the bubble. I will tell you how she's done it, and it will resonate, I am sure, with those in this room who know her and love her for it. Sonia, despite her staggering work schedule, always makes time for family and friends, and her clerks are her family. How many weddings has she done? How many showers, christenings, birthdays, anniversary parties has she arrived with a gift in tow and her down-to-earth, warm, and friendly manner? People at your party or event who have never met her are often taken by surprise at how warm and affectionate she is to all. If someone is ill or has a problem or there is a death in the family, she will be there if she can. And if she cannot, she will call or text or send an email. Or sometimes she writes a lovely handwritten note. I don't know how she does it. Is there a single person on the planet who has asked her to sign a book and she said no? Not only does she sign the book, though, but she wants to know about the person who is receiving the book so that she can write a personal note that applies to that person. Who lives in the bubble and does this? One of the most important ways she has transcended the bubble is through her intentional outreach to children of all ages, ethnicity, socioeconomic backgrounds. She especially gives to those children who may have struggles, be it poverty, language, health issues, and the like. She will make an extra effort to hug them, to smile with them, bring them close to her, and share with them confidence to follow their dreams. Many of you know, but some of you may not, that in almost every single trip she makes to address distinguished group, be it lawyers, judges, law schools, professors, the rich and famous who court her company, she schedules a visit to children in the poorest neighborhoods, to families and organizations who service those needs. Wherever it is, she insists that she visit places where no Supreme Court justice has ever been. Every summer, she participates in the major event for the children of the Bronx, To Dream Big, and she gets other famous people who can inspire these children to come and join the event. Just a week or so ago, she visited a school in the poorest neighborhood of Newark because the principal called her chambers and so impressed her that she said, okay. She has not forgotten her roots, what it was like to be that poor child with health issues, that child whose family struggled to make it in a very tough world. Whenever we go to a restaurant, she will patiently take photos with every one of the staff who ask her, and I have taken hundreds of photos with their iPhones. She is especially kind to the kitchen staff, who are thrilled to be treated with such respect and spoken to with such warmth. I was in Washington one weekend, and we were walking to her apartment, and some law students came up to her to tell her how much they admired her and ask if they could have a photo with her. Of course, she said, yes. And I thought, would that law student feel as comfortable approaching some of her other colleagues on the Supreme Court bench? Sonia often visits her mother, Selena, in Florida. And when Selena's husband, Omar, was ill and dying, she sought out as many medical professionals to try to help him. She made extra visits to be there for him and her mother. She was and remains a beloved and devoted daughter who has never let the Supreme Court duties prevent her from being there for her mother when she needs her the most. And her kindness extends to my husband's parents, Mike, a retired bus driver, and Eve, a homemaker, who passed away last year at the ages of 103 and 96. She never missed a visit with them. When she came, their eyes would light up as she came to the door. She made my in-laws feel so special, and they loved her for it. I promise you that she does this for so many, many people who cross her path. What she does is she gives the gift of herself. We would all do well to try to emulate her this way. The world would be a much nicer place. I watch her closely when she is doing an event, and I listen to her speak. It can be very hard when you live in the bubble to keep your true voice. She has kept her true voice. It is the same voice of the Sonia I met in 1980 when we were both just baby lawyers, just beginning in the profession we both loved then and still love now. Sonia is very generous. She is open to her very exciting world of meeting famous and amazing people, or doing very exciting or prestigious events with the people she knew before she was famous. Others who live in the bubble might seek out new, more prestigious friends, but not Sonia. While she has and will continue to enjoy the amazing people and experiences that have opened for her since she's come to the Supreme Court, she never forgets to share those exciting experiences with the people she knows and loves. My son Zachary will never forget that he went with her to Vice President Joe Biden's swearing in because he was staying with her because he wanted to go to be there for President Obama's inauguration. He had no idea, and when she offered him a place to stay, that she would invite him to such an event. She just said, "Hey, Zach, do you have something to wear, like a shirt and a tie?" Actually, he surprisingly did, and off they went. This is who Sonia is, and Zach will never forget that experience for the rest of his life. Every summer when she visits at my underwhelming beach club, she greets people she has met before and seeks out some senior members of the club, asking them about their health, their grandchildren, their life, and she really listens. She really cares. Last summer, a teacher in a poor school in Brooklyn told her how much her class idolized her, and she made arrangements for them to meet her at the Supreme Court when they came to Washington. A dear criminal defense attorney passed away suddenly last year, Ed Wilford, who had been one of my office mates at Legal Aid. Ed and Tony Rico, his partner, went on to become premier criminal defense attorneys, fighting bigotry, racism, injustice for all. Sonia wrote the most beautiful letter to his daughter and his son about Ed. Tony Rico wept when he gave it to the family. She dances salsa with Notorious RBG. She loves to play poker, and if she's not winning, you are not allowed to leave. When the criminal justice system or the family law that I practice still sometimes makes me weep for my clients, she tells me, when I stop weeping for my clients, I will stop practicing law. She who goes into her office and helps decide the legal issues of the century never, never makes me feel that my practice is one iota less important than hers. One of her finest examples of transcending the bubble may surprise some of you who don't know her. Despite the fact that her job is to be one of the top judges in the world, she rarely, if ever, is judgmental in her personal life. Sonia always looks deeper into the person and the behavior, seeking out the reasons or motivations which compel behavior among the people she knows. Sonia may find the behavior problematic, but doesn't judge the person. I've often heard her say, good people can make bad decisions. I believe it's why she is so able to negotiate the world that she must and get along so well with people who may have starkly different views. Sonia has maintained her humility. Isn't that a wonderful accomplishment? So my dear friend Sonia, what you feared the most was this job would change you, that the bubble would somehow make you different, that you would lose that sense of who you are and the roots from which you sprung. Well, my friend, you have transcended the bubble. You have made a difference because of who you are, and we all in this room love you for it.
On behalf of the Annual Survey of American Law, I would like to dedicate to you our 73rd volume.
I think you can understand when I say I'm overwhelmed. I turned to Austin and said, this wasn't supposed to make me cry, but I am. I was going to start by thanking the annual survey for touching me by dedicating Journal 73 to me. I thought, and still do, that it was a tremendous, tremendous honor. And I thank all of you who have had a part in making it happen. My grandmother's upstairs in heaven playing 73 as her number for the week. Nick, she's probably boxing it, so. For those who don't know what it means, look on the internet. You know, Connie Motley, the legendary Justice Constance Baker Motley, who I was graced to sit with on the Southern District of New York bench, came to me after I decided the baseball case, Debbie. And she came down and sat with me and said, Sonia, it doesn't matter what you do in life. When you die, your obituary will start, baseball judge dies. Connie, as with so many things, was absolutely right. But what the annual survey has done for me is a greater gift. It's the gift of palpably knowing, palpably feeling the love of friends who I adore. Every one of you has played such a special part in my life, one that has helped me through some of the toughest times, one who's gotten me to the Supreme Court. I don't always forgive him for that. Especially when I'm back home. But I am blessed with so many things, but not the least of which is friends who are so special and treasured to me. Thank you. I thought that the greatest gift of the nomination process, despite Trevor, a process I will never, ever, ever repeat, was seeing my brother cry on television one day, because I knew how much he loved me. You can watch me cry and know how much I love you. Thank you, my friends. And thank you to everyone in this audience, so many of my former law clerks, so many of my judicial colleagues who, if I mention one, I'm going to forget somebody and then I'm going to be horribly embarrassed. But to the others who have spent their time with me and with whom I have shared so much. It is an honor. John, I had no understanding at your tribute how you felt, because I thought it was all true. What happens when you don't think it's all true, but you're grateful anyway? I am grateful. Thank you all. This has deeply, deeply touched me.
Justice, thank you for allowing the annual survey to dedicate its volume to you. Thank you for the example you set, not only for excellence in the craft of judging, excellence in the law, but for the humanity you bring to this role, for transcending the bubble, and for being indeed the people's justice. We are so very proud that you've joined us here this evening, and if you'll allow me to say so very proud of you. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. We have a reception in the back of the room. I hope you'll join us. Let's give one more round of applause to our dedicatee.